Hey, it's Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate and the Online Real Estate Academy. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you. We have some very interesting developments relative to Zillow and the Zillow, what are they calling it now? The touring contract, the touring agreement, a 7-day touring agreement with Zillow. We're going to get into that, and we're going to bring it up on the screen here in just a second. But before that, I just want to take a look at the inventory numbers that we're seeing for this spring. Just a quick update on that. Just checked as of May 1st, and we always check it on the 1st of the month. As of May 1st, here in Massachusetts, statewide, we had 3,896 single-family homes for sale statewide in Massachusetts. Now, that is the highest number since May of 2020. No, it's not that much higher. We're just going to round it off and call it 3,900 homes. It's not that much higher. Usually we're in the 3,000 range, but it is a big bump up from last month. It's like an extra 1,000 homes in the last month here in Massachusetts, which you would expect. You know, it's a spring market. A lot of people put their homes on the market going into May. But it is a big bump up from April 1st, and it's a couple of hundred homes, in some cases 400 or 500 homes more than the last couple of years. In 2020, just to put it into perspective, in 2020, we had 7,200 homes, 7,188 to be precise, on May 1st. And in 2019, when things were really normal, we had 10,426 homes on the market statewide on May 1st, 2019. So just as a perspective, keep this in mind. Today, we have 3,900 homes, 3,900 as of yesterday or whatever, May 1st, as of May 1st. Good morning, by the way. Great to have you here. So inventory has jumped up a lot in the last 30 days, but still compared to the last couple of years, it's not that much higher. But it is a big difference than what we've seen in prior to, well, you know, when things were normal, so to speak. So today's video is going to be about this new touring letter from Zillow. So let's get right into it. We have the article here from Inman. And we also have a official blog post from Zillow itself. Let's go to that first. Zillow's new touring agreement puts consumers first. I got a problem with the first sentence right off the bat, actually. Zillow's new touring agreement puts consumers first. Actually, no. Zillow's new touring agreement puts Zillow first. Zillow is first when it comes. Why do you think they came up with this touring agreement to begin with? They came up with this touring agreement to protect their own business. And as always, we have our notes. Remember, the business model of Zillow is to sell you advertising against data which you provided. So they just are aggregating the data that you gave them, and then they're selling those eyeballs back to you, right? How do we fall for this? I'm happy to say that I've never spent a penny with Zillow. I've never advertised on Zillow, and I don't advertise at all, actually. How do I do that? How do my agents do that? You can watch some of them. Maybe I'll even give you a hint in today's video, but you watch some of my other videos. I made a video about how to be successful no matter what the rules are. You should watch that. It's on my, video thing. Somewhere there. Last month, I made that video. So this contract helps protect Zillow's business model. Let's be perfectly clear why they made it. They made it because they make money off of your advertising dollars. Agents advertise at Zillow, and they're trying to protect that revenue stream for themselves. And when you look at this contract, it's absolutely ridiculous for you, the buyer agent, because it basically says that you're going to show all of these homes to people, but you're not going to get paid. This is a contract for incredibly weak agents. This is a contract for incredibly weak agents. So I remember even like a year ago, at least going back a year, if not more, I said that we were going to move into an environment that was a little bit like renting apartments in the Boston rental market. So some of you might know that I started in this business a while back now, renting apartments in the Boston rental market. And unlike most rental markets in the country, in the Boston rental market, the tenant almost always pays the fee. Now, it can be negotiable. It's always negotiable, but almost always the tenant pays the fee. Almost always. And yeah, I know it's a college town. I know that's unusual. A lot of other places, the landlord pays the fee, but not in Boston. And therefore, you have, let's just say you have a couple of college kids come into your rental office, or young professionals, recently graduated people, and they come in and they want to look at apartments. So since you're going to ask them to pay your fee, that sounds familiar, right? What happens? Well, you sit them down at the little desk at your rental office and you say to them, we get paid, and B, we're going to try to get the landlord to pay, but if the landlord doesn't pay, you have to pay us. And you just look at them in the eye with strength of conviction as a strong salesperson. What you don't do is give them a crappy Zillow touring agreement like the piece of that I have here, and say, would you pretty please pay us maybe later? Because that's what this touring agreement basically says. It basically says, we're not going to get paid right now, but maybe sort of, if we find you a house, maybe you'll pay us later, because that's what that says. This is a touring agreement for incredibly bad salespersons. This does not put the customer first, and it certainly doesn't put the agent first. It puts Zillow first. What you've got to do, there was this kid, because, I'm such a geezer, that I worked with at the real estate. I wish I could remember his name. And he was like 25, and all of his clients were like 25. And he'd bring them into the office, and before showing them apartments, he would say, hey, dudes, we get paid. Sign this. And they'd all laugh because of why? Because he was so direct. Of course he gets paid, and he wasn't afraid to say it. If I'm going to spend my afternoon showing you apartments, dude, you're going to pay me. You're going to pay me. We're going to try to get the landlord to pay, but that usually doesn't work. But otherwise, you are going to pay me, assuming that you apply and get accepted and create a tenancy. If you don't apply through an apartment that I show you and you'll find an apartment someplace else, well, then, you don't owe me anything. There's no touring fee. There's no application fee. But if we are successful, there is a success fee, and you're going to pay me. Damn it. And they'll all laugh, and then they'd sign it. And I know. And it was pretty, I had a little bit more of a smoother presentation, of course, because I'm so smooth. But I got people to sign it. And a lot of times the kids would sign it. Kids, I know I'm being so ageist, because really their parents back in, Palo Alto or wherever, they were paying. And I remember one time I had these parents from Boca Raton, and they were real estate agents, very, very well off down in Florida. And they called me up, and I sent the parents some accounting, and I'm like, this, and this. And on there was the rental fee. And they called me up from Boca, and they're like, what the? We're not paying that. That nobody charges a rental fee, because they had never heard of it, because they'd never done business in Boston. And I'm like, yeah. And then I sent them the signed contract that all of the kids signed before I showed them apartments. And the parents were like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that's how it's done up there. And I got paid. Now, word to the wise. One time, when I was brand new, like my first weekend as a real estate agent renting apartments, or one of my first weekends, these two women came into the office. and they were, all right, I'm going to have to admit, I was weak. They were stunningly beautiful and French. And I showed them apartments. And then I followed up with them about 2 or 3 days later, and I found out that they actually rented an apartment that I showed them, but they went behind my back and contacted the landlord without me. And because I didn't have them sign the fee disclosure thing, I didn't get paid. And while it was fun as a 40-year-old to be walking around Alston, Brighton with like the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your entire life, I would have rather had the commission. Yeah. So live and learn, I guess. Yeah. What an idiot I was. But yeah. So that's the way that goes. So, and never again would I ever do that. I had the I learned my lesson, and I always showed them apartments, but only after they signed the rental fee disclosure. And I would occasionally say, okay, meet me at my office at 1:00. And they would come in and they'd be sitting down and they'd be like, and I tell them the story about, we get paid, the whole thing. We have a fee disclosure. We're going to try to get the landlord to pay it, but sometimes that doesn't work. Typically it doesn't. And I had a handful of customers from time to time who wouldn't sign the paperwork. And I'd say, okay, well, thank you for coming in today. We have investments in the office, the technology, our time, our relationships with the property owners that we represent. If you're not willing to pay the fee, that's okay. No problem. Thank you for coming in today. You're more than happy to go find an apartment some other way. And they'd be like looking at me like, what about the 3 or 4 showings that you set up, Jack? Well, we're going to cancel those, and you don't want to pay us for our services and our time. So thanks for coming. And almost always they'd crumble, right? And they'd sign the document, right? And they'd agree to pay. Because why? Because as a salesperson, I was strong enough to hold out and wait for the signature to ask to get paid. And I would never leave that office to show apartments, except for that one time with the French girls, until that document was signed. And if they didn't want to sign it, I just, ended the appointment and said, thank you very much for coming in. You have a nice day. If you rethink it and want to come back, let me know. So this Zillow thing, and we don't need to even go into the provisions, because there's no provisions for you to get paid in this 7-day touring agreement for Zillow. There are none. There is one provision, actually. Someone does get paid. And who is it? It's Zillow, because they want you to use this agreement so that you keep advertising on Zillow. Let me say that again. They want you to use this agreement so that you keep on advertising at Zillow. So someone does get paid through this agreement, and it's Zillow. If I made, I think we're perfectly clear on that. Let's see if we have any questions here. Uber Realty, good to hear from you again, Uber Realty. Only if you have shown an appointment in the beginning of your career will you see what is coming. Right. So, right. I've lived the pain, right? I didn't get paid on that transaction. And it was a time when I really needed that money. And I lost out. Listing agreement agent needs to plan to show homes, open houses during the week. I actually have an open house today. It's for a rental, by the way. 3:30 to 5 in beautiful Plymouth, Massachusetts. So here's the thing. I'm glad you brought up listing agents, by the way, Uber Realty. I'm really going to put that comment back up on the screen. And the reason why I'm glad you mentioned listing agents is because if you're not getting this, and I've said this so many times over the year, especially over the last year, if you're not shifting all of your marketing to be focused on sellers, then you're making a big mistake for most of you. And 2, or as my wife would say, and B, you should be developing some type of mini media empire. And I've been talking about this for a very long time. so that you're not developing leads or dependent upon leads from stupid Zillow, where you're just renting space on Zillow. And when you stop renting it, you don't get any more leads. You need to develop a mini media empire so that you're like me, be like Jack, where you don't advertise. I don't advertise. I don't believe any of my agents advertise. And by the way, we're having a very good spring. Very good spring. We've already sold a house this month. Which is Friday morning. We're 2 days into it. We sold a house and we've rented 3 apartments already this month. And yeah. So, and we don't have, none of my agents advertise. I think got like 32 agents now. We don't advertise. How do you do that? Because for one way or the other, whether it's old school, like, just knowing people in your community, or some type of mini media empire, which is what I have, very mini, we've built up a following of people that know, like, and trust us. And so we don't advertise. And so when it comes to sitting down with a buyer who wants to do business with us, we're not going to be weak-kneed wussies asking them to sign some type of Zillow touring agreement, which we're not going to get paid. We're going to be sitting down and saying basically what we used to say in apartment world. We get paid. We're going to try to get the seller to pay the commission. But if the seller doesn't pay the commission, then yeah, you'll have to pay the commission. And if they don't want to sign it, then that's fine. But the better thing is just to be working with sellers. To use the old political phrase, now more than ever, you should be focusing on sellers. And you should be focusing on all your clients who know, like, and trust you, not just these anonymous leads. I don't want to say anonymous, but these, flighty leads from the internet who have no prior relationship with you. Right? Why are you doing? Stop doing that. Stop giving all of this money to Zillow so that they can deliver leads to you which have no loyalty to you. Right? Why do you do that? I don't understand why you do that. Because you know why? Because you're lazy and you'd rather just pay for the advertising, but you're not building anything. You're becoming a slave to Zillow or the billboard company or I don't care whatever advertising you're doing. You're putting fortunes in Chinese cookies. I don't care what you're doing. You're becoming slaves to them, where you could be building a following with all the amazing tools that we have. I've been reminded so many times in the last week of how old I am. And I'm 55. And I've lived through this period where I remember, I'm so old that I used to, when I was a kid, we had a rotary phone. When you said to dial the phone, you literally dial the phone. I'm so old that we only had to dial 5 digits, right? That was it. That was it. We did. I think it was 4 digits, 5 digits. I think it was 5. And that was it. And so to have all of these media outlets that we have today, I think so many of us take that for granted. And I think you really start to think strategically about building your own mini empire. And as I said in the video 2 or 3, 4 days, 6, 7 days ago, whatever, find some cross-reference between something that you like, there's some type of critical mass of people that like it, and somehow become the number one news source for that, and develop a following on that, and then go back to those folks and ask them to support your work by buying or selling a house with you. All right, let's see if we have any other questions. Nope, we don't. I've been really fun with this. Thank you so much. The jobs report is coming up this morning in about 12 minutes. The jobs report, very important. Powell has basically introduced some quantitative easing into the economy, a very complex situation, but with moving assets off their balance sheet, and that lowered interest rates a little bit, a notch, 0.1% over the last couple of days. So basically, it's a rate cut without cutting. It's, yeah, they're manipulating, turning the dials because they're so smart in Washington, D.C. Because remember, the Fed's number one job in an election year is to elect the incumbent, no matter who he is. All right. So I'm Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate. Have a great day. Go make some money. Bye-bye. Don't use that agreement.